So the UK and the EU have been criticised for flawed approaches to the Northern Ireland Protocol. So this is from the House of Lords. There was a report. What we're going to see is the difference between a fairly mediocre slash not great article versus a really much better article from RTE, which covers far more topics than the BBC one. So that's going to be the difference we see as I get through my issues around the highlighter. There we go. Boom, it's come up. So this is far more kind of 50-50-ish kind of article, whilst the one from RTE really highlights a lot of the issues around what the UK has done. So we'll go through both, and then you can kind of see the difference and why the BBC isn't that great on a lot of issues, especially more recently. Anyways, so let's get into the actual meat of the article. So the UK and the EU have both taken a fundamentally flawed approach to the Northern Ireland Protocol, a House of Lords committee has concluded. All right. So both essentially, if you read that conclusion, you think both groups are to blame for all of the problems within Northern Ireland, which we know is definitely not true. The peer said there had been a lack of clarity, transparency and readiness on part of the UK government. Let's not forget here, it was the UK government that lied consistently about the impacts of the Northern Ireland Protocol, saying there would be unfettered access from GB to NI. If anyone asks you for custom papers, you can mail it to Boris Johnson or throw it in the bin. Let's not forget that. The EU was described as lacking balance, understanding and flexibility. So do you remember when, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you know that I constantly talk about buzzwords, implementation, interpretation, all these words. Now we've got some more balance, understanding and a classic flexibility. So the EU is lacking balance and understanding regarding the impact on Northern Ireland. Nah, I don't think so. The committee said both sides need to be prepared to compromise. So again, 50-50, both sides have to do something here when realistically it's more the UK that has to do anything. Lord J of someplace, committee chairman, said it was an absolute necessity that the UK and EU urgently work together to ensure ensure Northern Ireland did not become a permanent casualty of the Brexit process. It's very ironic considering that it was Great Britain that made Northern Ireland a casualty of Brexit. No one else did that. No one else made Northern Ireland separate. It was GB who agreed to this. Let's never forget that. He added that the political qualities of patience, dialogue, and most of all trust, which had been seen during the Northern Ireland peace process, needed to come into force now. Let's see. Patience, the UK had shown very little of, to the point where they did most of the negotiations within the last few minutes. The EU have been very patient. Dialogue, the UK has taken constant unilateral action instead of talking to the EU about specific issues to grace periods that we previously agreed to, and most of all trust, which the UK has consistently breached by taking multiple unilateral actions and constantly threatening the Northern Ireland Protocol. Yes, you can argue that the EU did threaten to use Article 16 during the vaccine disputes early on, I think in January, but that was shut down within the space of about an hour or two. So again, if you make that argument, you look very stupid. And that's why Brandon Lewis and Frost, who make those arguments, look very stupid. So again, the UK are the ones who've been poor in all three of these aspects: trust, patience, and dialogue. A cross-party Lords committee has been examining the operation of the protocol. So you've got people from former SDLP people and former duped party. That's what I call them. Both the EU and the UK need a greater level of understanding of Northern Ireland than is now apparent. So it's very ironic that the UK, which Northern Ireland is a part of, doesn't understand Northern Ireland. It's very ironic, don't you think? And these Unionists who are so desperate to cling on to keep being a part of Great Britain is part of a country which, separated itself out from Northern Ireland. We actively went out and separated ourselves from NI, and now we're constantly moaning about it. So those people who wear red jackets and are patriotic and proud to be British, I ask you the question of what kind of country betrays you? How is that? Does that make you feel proud that you were betrayed by your own country? Does it? Because I'd feel shame. I feel deep shame. One of the things which needs to be done, I think, is for Northern Ireland's interest to be made much clearer, both to the European Union and frankly to Westminster. So you can see that's a much bigger dig at the UK, sort of GB. That GB have failed. Westminster's failed to understand Northern Ireland. They spun it as this is the best of both worlds for Northern Ireland. They are within the UK's, the UK single market and the EU single market. The problem is GB can't export goods to Northern Ireland unfettered because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, because of the Johnson Protocol, because of Brexit. Let's not forget that. So yeah, this clearly, the Lords were clearly taking a bigger dig at Westminster. It's just this way the BBC article is written is very 50-50. The executive has a real role to play. This is the Northern Ireland executive, some sort of administrative branch within Northern Ireland. So I couldn't find too much on them. I couldn't really understand the system. So if anyone knows better, which someone definitely, most of the comments will do, can you just explain the aspect of the Northern Ireland executive? So the executive has a real role to play in establishing direct contact with or strengthening direct contact with the European Union in Brussels, so they are better aware of the concerns and needs of Northern Ireland. The problem is the UK have been talking nonsense about the sausage war and all this other stuff. So maybe it would be more advantageous for the EU to speak directly with people within Northern Ireland who aren't as political. They're more there for administrative reasons. So this could be an interesting point from the Lords. Both sides have proposed an agri-food agreement, the so-called Swiss-style proposal from the EU, which would involve the UK following EU rules around agri-foods, which the UK has rejected, and the UK wanting, an equivalent style agreement, which is not going to happen specifically because we can't be trusted. And it wouldn't resolve all of the issues either. New Zealand has an equivalency agreement with the EU, and there are still checks, physical checks on agri-foods coming from New Zealand to the EU. They're just not as aggressive. They're not done as often. The Lord said that a failure to reach a deal on this issue would show that Northern Ireland's political and economic stability is a lower priority for both than maintaining their respective red lines. So they're saying that Northern Ireland is basically the casualty of both groups failing to compromise, which to an extent is true. The other conclusions include potential benefits from the protocol will require political stability and certainty. That's the fault of the UK government because they haven't given that. The UK government is constantly threatening the protocol, which doesn't give any political stability or certainty at all for both businesses and consumers. Stormont executive should have a more assertive role in maximising Northern Ireland's influence, both within the UK and the EU. Why they would have a greater role in maximising Northern Ireland's influence in the EU is beyond me, considering that, well, I suppose you could argue it's in the EU single market for goods, which kind of makes sense, maybe. But within the UK, I would be careful about this one from the House of Lords because the political parties, kind of the leanings within Stormont look like they're changing, with the DUP not going to be the majority anymore, and it could be Sinn Féin, which would make things really interesting, and it would put the cat amongst the pigeons. Both sides have an obligation to consider alternatives to the protocol in the event the Northern Ireland Assembly does not support the continued operations of its key aspects. That will happen in 2024, I believe. Responding to the report, a government spokesperson said it shares the committee's concerns about the significant disruption that the Northern Ireland Protocol is causing. So this is what I've said in a previous video. This is really important. So what the British government will do is they'll find a bit that they agree on with a certain country or certain group. So the US, the EU, or in this case the House of Lords. We agree that the Northern Ireland Protocol is causing problems. That's why we have done this, the command paper, which is never going to happen because the EU are not going to renegotiate the Northern Ireland Protocol. So this is the kind of spin the British government employs there. You can see that very clearly from orange there and mostly in blue here. So yeah, that's a good one for the people of this channel to watch out for. They also go on to say any durable solution must safeguard the Good Friday Agreement in all its dimensions, east-west as well as north-south. I mean, I thought the whole point of the Good Friday Agreement was to stop a hard border within the island of Ireland, which would be east-west, right? It wouldn't be about north-south relations. So that's a bit of rubbish there. I could be wrong. Like Rob, I haven't actually read the Northern Ireland Protocol, so if you have and you're an expert in it, or you have any decent knowledge about it, can you just explain this bit here in blue at the bottom? So if we actually look at a real G's article, Big Sean Whelan, I hope that's how you pronounce her name, he talks about the report being far more critical of the British government compared to the BBC, who made it more 50-50, both sides are the problem, both sides need to compromise, etc. This is far more critical. So a report on the Northern Ireland Protocol from the House of Lords has urged Britain and the EU to restore trust between the two sides. The report warns that failure to do so means Northern Ireland is destined to become a casualty of Brexit. So that's stuff covered within the BBC article. The British government's failure to spell out clearly what the protocol would mean in practice, it says, has led to businesses being unprepared for its implementation, which it says came as a shock, because we remember that Boris Johnson said no checks would happen, blah blah blah, and that led to businesses not being prepared, even to the point where the CEO, I think, of M&S, I can't remember the top don in M&S, has no idea why his sandwiches are constantly being checked when they go from GB to France. That's how bad the situation is, because the British government failed to explain the implications of Brexit to businesses. And that's why you get this paragraph here, which was not mentioned in the BBC's article, which is fundamentally very important to one of the reasons why the Northern Ireland Protocol hasn't worked and who is to blame for it. In more criticism of the British government's actions since the start of the year, the report says the government's actions in relation to the protocol, including unilateral extension of grace periods, and a perceived failure to implement previous agreements reached in the Withdrawal Agreement Joint Committee, have been regarded as provocative by the EU and have contributed to a lack of trust and cooperation between the two sides. So when the BBC article talks about a lack of trust and why more trust is needed, this article clearly spells out what the House of Lords thinks led to the breakdown of trust. It continues, the UK government has argued that its actions were necessary in the interests of the people and businesses of Northern Ireland. However, in order to maximise the prospect of the EU taking a flexible approach to the implementation of the protocol, the government needs to rebuild that trust by demonstrating in good faith. And that's something the EU has asked for consistently. That's something Coveney, I think that's how you pronounce his name because I keep getting dinged for that, has said the UK needs to show goodwill. The EU have said the UK needs to show goodwill, and now you've got the House of Lords saying the UK needs to show goodwill. If I said EU needs to show goodwill there, I meant the UK. So this is clearly the consensus by a vast majority of groups now, that the UK needs to show some goodwill and rebuild trust, because that's the only way you're going to get an equivalency agreement, is by getting some trust and stopping any kind of threats of deregulation. So this is a really good point here from the House of Lords. This requires an open, constructive engagement, meeting its legal obligations and fulfilling its outstanding political commitments. That's a fundamental point from the House of Lords, that the UK needs to fully implement the Northern Ireland Protocol and show some respect. Essentially, show some respect, show some good faith in order to rebuild trust and get the ball moving again. The House of Lords accuses the EU of failing to account for the political impact on Unionists and Loyalists in its use of the protocol to protect the single market, which is one of the fundamental, most important things to the EU, the protection of the single market. One of the reasons why the EU, in some cases, struggles to get deals with countries like Australia and the US, why they take so long, because these countries have to respect the importance of the single market. So this argument here about the impact of Unionists and Loyalists, who really cares about people who fantasize about being a part of a country that is not a part of their current country, geographically speaking. There is a separate body of water there, the Irish Sea. So it's ridiculous that the EU would have to take into account these people so fundamentally, when I don't think they're even the majority within Northern Ireland anyways, hardcore Unionists. The report says the Unionist and Loyalist Committee are deeply concerned about Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom, which has been undermined by the protocol, which to an extent is true, but at the same time, some of these people would want a hard border within the island of Ireland, but this was the only option really to stop the troubles from happening. Dominic Cummings was saying he was going to basically force the issue and get rid of Ireland from the EU single market, which was never going to happen. So they would have been we would have been stuck in a perpetual problem where do you put the border? You can't put it around Ireland, the island of Ireland. You can't put it within Ireland itself. The only place to put it was the Irish Sea, and that's what happened. So this argument here from the report, you fail to care about the feelings and concerns about Unionists and Loyalists. Okay, who cares? The sense of alienation has been a factor going back many years and has multiple causes, including a lack of access to employment, skills and investment opportunities. So these people, these Unionists who are so desperate to remain part of GB, have been fundamentally let down by Great Britain due to a lack of access to employment, skills and investment opportunities, which is something that Ireland has gotten a lot of because of money from the EU, but also the fact that Ireland has access to the EU's single market and customs union, and is a big place where certain firms set up, in terms of services, because of the lower taxes and because Ireland speak English. I think that's their national language. So you can see that the country, Ireland itself, has done very well from being an EU member. And being a part of its single market and customs union, but you can see Northern Ireland has struggled being a part of the union because there's not much money going towards it, as it's seen as an afterthought. I don't think many people within GB fundamentally actually care about Northern Ireland, especially because it is separated very far. Not very far, sorry, it's separated from the main island. So yeah, that's my kind of thoughts on it anyways. But you can see that, the House of Lords also called for the EU and the British government to find new ways to include Northern Ireland voices in the making of EU laws that affect Northern Ireland. That's not a bad thing. Switzerland does have some committees when it comes to the making of EU laws, but they don't get a fundamental vote or say in it. But it could be a decent thing to do. But going back to this point here, some of the areas I think that have resorted to violence, these unionists and stuff like that, some of these areas are incredibly deprived. The lack of access to employment, skills and investment opportunities. This one's a really important one if you want to stop certain people going towards violence. It won't stop, stupid middle class people from doing it, but at least you can keep working class people away from it, especially when you explain to them, look, the more violent the area gets, the less investment you're going to have, less stability you're going to have, and the lower your quality of life will be. So this point here is really important from the House of Lords. So respect on that. There's a lot more here, so apologies, this video might be quite long. Writing of the dissatisfaction with the Northern Ireland Protocol, the report states the dissatisfaction is exacerbated by the pervasive sense that the protocol creates a democratic deficit in that significant aspects of EU law with wide-ranging political and economic implications apply to Northern Ireland, subject neither to the UK's participation in EU institutions, nor to a consent from parliamentarians of Westminster of Stormont. Now, obviously, Northern Ireland being separated from GB when it comes to goods, that makes sense why there would be a, quote, democratic deficit, because the UK is not going to have a say over certain rules within Northern Ireland because it's part of the EU's single market now for goods. But giving sort of people within Northern Ireland, giving Stormont a voice within the EU is not necessarily a bad idea, considering it is part of the EU's single market for goods. However, EEA countries, sort of like, I think countries like Norway, don't get a say in EU laws either. They have to greenlight things. Same with Switzerland. So this idea of a democratic deficit is true to an extent, but EEA countries don't really get a wide-ranging say within EU laws either. So that's just, the nature of the membership. So I wouldn't hold too much sway within this. I think it would be a decent idea to give sort of Stormont or, some group within Northern Ireland sort of speaking, the ability to speak to EU officials directly when it comes to the formation of new laws, but I don't think fundamentally anything is going to happen here. While making the mitigating steps that can be taken, there is no apparent way to eliminate the democratic deficit. We intend to return to this issue in the coming months. Well, good luck, buddy. Nothing's going to happen. It says both sides are under equal obligation to find resolutions, which is true, but one side is causing most of the issues and the other side is not. So within the protocol to provide stability and certainty to businesses and the people of Northern Ireland, and says trust must be urgently restored to repair the damage. I mean, there's only one side that can restore trust, and they're not doing it, Chief. It says many of the problems of trade in Northern Ireland are due to firms in Great Britain not being prepared to trade with Northern Ireland. And once again, I am telling these firms, if you have goods being exported from GB to NI, get your supply chains out of GB. The EU have given grace periods up until, I think it's like October, for, chilled meats. Like, hurry up. Like, you're losing money right now. It's cost Marks and Spencer's a ton of money. So get out. If your supply chains are in GB and going to NI, get out really quickly. It says the UK government urgently needs to correct the lack of understanding among businesses in Great Britain of the new requirements for trading within Northern Ireland. That's something, Britain should have done last year. Definitely should have done last year. Didn't do it. And then once the Northern Ireland Protocol was implemented, you had Brandon Lewis on January 1st saying, where's the border? And now he's like, now we need to get rid of the trade border. Like, what a joker. Likewise, the EU and its member states must address the lack of awareness among EU businesses of the opportunity for Northern Ireland under the protocol. Again, that's not the EU's job, that's the job of Northern Ireland to do this. Also, the fact that the DUP don't like it when people point out the potential business opportunities for Northern Ireland, but again, it's not the worst thing in the world to do for sort of EU firms to set up subsidiaries within Northern Ireland, if possible, or small kind of businesses or whatever. So then they can export to GB with no problem, but also to the rest of the EU. But that's up to certain businesses and the requirements of those businesses. You know, those Cheshire Cheese guys didn't have to set up in France. They could have set up within Northern Ireland if they wanted to, but they chose to set up within France. So it depends on the requirements of the businesses. It says the most commercial benefits of the protocol is that Northern Ireland is the only place where businesses can operate without customs declarations, rules of origin certificates, or non-tariff barriers to both British and EU markets, which fundamentally, if there is stability within Northern Ireland, this can happen, and Northern Ireland can benefit greatly from that. It supports the idea of SPS or food veterinary agreements. It recognises the two sides have opposing views on how to get there. It says the veterinary agreement is really important, and the failure to reach it suggests that political economic stability in Northern Ireland is a lower priority from the EU to the EU than the protection of the single market, which is fundamentally true. But obviously, one of the main points of the EU is the single market, so the EU are obviously going to be desperate to protect it. And they take a dig at the UK as well, saying a lower priority for the UK government than regulatory sovereignty and the integrity of its trade policy. We've already heard from the Americans that getting an SPS agreement with the EU, a Swiss-style agreement, would not impact any trade deal potentially between the US and the UK. So the argument that, you know, the integrity of trade policy is ridiculous. The regulatory sovereignty argument holds sway only if you're going to deregulate. So these again are two stupid points from the British government. A consensus has yet to emerge behind any alternative, notwithstanding an intensive search for solutions. So if you have any solutions, please contact the British government on the House of Lords. If you can find an email address for him, if you can figure something out. They go on to say, we invite those opposed to the protocol to, in principle, to submit proposals for a comprehensive, practical alternative consistent with the method of Brexit, with no alignment to EU trading or standard rules adopted by the government, or any alternatives which are consistent with the Good Friday Agreement. So you're not allowed a hard border, and you're not allowed alignment with the EU. So good luck, anyone. And technology is not the answer. No one write in technology. There's not too much more I think I want to say about this, but you know, they talk about it won't be easy and things like that. So there's not a ton more in this article that's worth talking about, apart from there are concerns from unionists and obviously businesses within Northern Ireland. But this article written by RTE and specifically Sean Whelan is far better than the article written by the BBC and by John Campbell. This article is pretty mediocre compared to this one. This one's more trying to take a balanced 50-50 view, whilst this one's talking about the fundamental problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Obviously, it's far longer, which enables the writer to do that, but also the fact that it's just fundamentally a better article. But anyways, this video's gone on for a long time. 22 minutes. So remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any actual solutions, contact the House of Lords. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.